On Sunday, it's the 196th instalment of the Manchester Derby, which will take place at Old Trafford. Man City will be seeking revenge against Man United after they lost 2-1 in the reverse fixture at Etihad in November. That was a strange game, really, when City, threw
Yeah.
away a one-goal lead in the closing minutes. Now, this is a game between two teams who have struggled for different reasons throughout this season. Both have performed well below the standards expected, and while United are sort of rank outsiders now for a top seven finish, I think they're 13th at the moment in the table. City are involved in this hotly contested battle to secure Champions League football for next season. Now, every Manchester derby, of course, is a big occasion. Coming out on top is important for both teams. But how important is this game for City to win on Sunday? It's important for multiple reasons, isn't it?
It's really important, once again, we were talking earlier about, a redemption for City for their crimes against Bournemouth and early on in the season, in November. And I think there's an element of that as well for City because the United game was intensely frustrating. A really poor United side that caught City in the midst of their sort of winter blues. And it was, we were winning, 1-0. Then it was Fernandez and Diallo within the last 5 minutes of the game. And it was, we did it to ourselves. That's what really, really hurt in that game. And it was Nunes, of course, had a bit of a mare, unfortunately. And City, look, that stung. That stung. And that was around December time, for what I can remember. It was one of those things that would have hurt the players. It definitely hurt the fans, and it was sort of like peak frustration around it. I saw a lot of very frustrated fans online and in real life moaning about that game, understandably. I think this is where pride has to kick in, and I'm hoping the momentum the City have got. The form is better since then. We've had a couple of different difficult games with Forest and Brighton and so on, but we are a better side than were back in November. And when I look back at that side, played against United in December. De Bruyne was playing Bernardo, Gundogan, so Phil Foden. It was a reasonably similar lineup. A few changes here and there, but a few of the players who were underwhelming that day played against Bournemouth and were much better. And we've added since then, obviously, Kusanov, Marmoush, Nico Gonzalez. And we've seen, obviously, a few changes to the way that City play a little bit. I do think this game is incredibly important. I think it is. I think when I look at that run of games and the fixtures that we've got, I would be hoping, we've got 9 games there, and with the target's to win 5, we should be 2 from the next. And at that point, you're more or less halfway there with your win total for the rest of the season that you need to get that top 5 for the Champions League. And I think there'll be a statement there as well. Going to Old Trafford and winning as a City fan, is everything, because it's one of the biggest games of the season. It's one of the first I look for when the fixtures come out. And I think the players will feel that. And I'm hoping Marmoush not being available, sorry, Haaland not being available, Marmoush is the alternative, will obviously change things because Haaland always has a good game against United. But I'm hoping we've got more than enough, and I suspect we will do.
Yeah, and what do you think we can? What would you think? Where do you think Man City can maybe exploit this United side? And what have you made of? I know you've watched City obviously mainly, but what have you made of United so far this season? It's been a poor season for them, obviously.
Yeah, conviction, and the lack of like sort of the players to fit Amorim's system. I think United fans sort of like what he's been saying, and it looks like they made a couple of decent signings. To be fair, that the young lad Heaven, which is a great name. He looks like a really astute signing, for United. But how good these players look good right now. Are they still as good as Heaven's been? Like, could you imagine United 10 years ago bringing in an academy player from Arsenal and go straight into the lineup? There's nothing wrong with that, and it could be a genius signing. But the level has dipped for United, and the expectations are on. As much as I think they're 7 unbeaten actually, so they're having a nice little spell. They are still a side very much, they're very much a work in progress, and they've got injuries too, and they've got a lot of new players, and in De Ligt and Mazraoui and Ugarte and so on. But they are still lacking a lot of quality. It's the weakest United side I've seen my life, and I'm 39 years old, and United, obviously, they might have been weaker when I was a baby, I can't remember, but in my conscious footballing fan life, I've never seen a United side that looks more like a Europa League side, or not even that right now. They're a mid-table side, and there is quality there, and Bruno Fernandes continues to be their one true star. He's scoring big goal for them after big goal, and as much as he sort of irritates me as a football fan because he's just one of those players who gets under your skin as a rival fan, I can't deny his quality, and I can't deny that as for United fans, they will love him because he always steps up for them. And I think Ugarte's actually been a pretty decent signing. I'm sure he'll be better in the second season. Højlund scored a couple of goals recently. I'm still not sure he's the level that United need. Xerxes looks a little bit better, but once again, better compared to what? Compared to their lower standards. Well, look, they've just played, Leicester, and in the opposition touchline was Van Nistelrooy. That used to be their level up front, and right now they're talking about a guy Højlund who would probably, be a rotation player for Leicester, with Vardy and people like that. So these are the standards for United right now. That doesn't mean though that they can't get at City. That doesn't mean they haven't got quality and experience there that can turn up. Masraoui, was from Bayern, wasn't he? So like that's the level he's from. And De Ligt, another one from that high level, and he's played for Juventus and Ajax and so on. They've got really good footballers in theory, and I think Amorim's a smart coach. But they are just a team very much in transition. They've been in transition for a long time, United, but they're at their lowest point, and um, they're actually having a decent little spell right now. The biggest problem has been consistency. That they go through spells where they can't create, and the football looks really functional, and they have a lack of quality up front, and they are leaning on Fernandes to save them, and there's inexperience in that back line, as a cohesive unit, because Heaven, he's only a young lad. De Ligt's his first season in the Premier League. Yes, they can be got at, and I'm hoping that even though they're having a slightly decent spell, City should just have too much quality of them.
Yeah, and you mentioned there Bruno Fernandes is their sort of one true star. Is that the key for City really to prevent him from doing, working his magic for United? He seems to be the really the one that's carrying them almost in this season.
Absolutely. Look, if I was Guardiola, I'd be telling whoever's there, be it, I mean, hopefully it's not Kovacic because he's not a man marker, but you'd be telling something Nico Gonzalez just to track him, because he's very good at what City have been very bad at this season, tracking runners, and Fernandes has an incredible, uncanny ability to drift into the box and score big goals or, around the edge of the area. He's a cracking player, and he's always done well against City as well. He scores in pretty big against them as well, Fernandes. So he's the one you've got to keep an eye on. It was previously Rashford, but Rashford's not there. He's always been so good in derbies against us. So I'm expecting, yeah, their biggest threat is really him. I think we'll see Casemiro play as well for what it's worth, because I think he'll lean on experience. I wouldn't be surprised to see Mason Mount as involved as well, because these guys have that big game experience, that seniority, and I think it doesn't matter really the coach. They often do tend to lean on experience when in a game that is typically bigger than the usual one. So I think Fernandes will probably play alongside Ugarte and probably Casemiro, and I think they'll look to use Ugarte and Casemiro as a sort of bedrock for Fernandes to get forward, and he's the one we've got to keep the biggest eye on, I reckon.
Yeah, and in terms of City's lineup, you expect obviously Guardiola to name his strongest team. Maybe obviously against Bournemouth, they went for De Bruyne and Foden. I think it was more on the left and right. But do you think maybe they go for natural wingers? Maybe someone like a Doku and then
Yeah,
Sevilla could well be back for this one as well.
I think we'll probably see. I don't think Nunes will play this one at right back. He had a tough game against United last time. It might be Rico Lewis, actually. I think he'll trust Rico Lewis, weirdly. Not weirdly, just, he's not been in the team, but I think he might lead on him a little bit. He'll almost certainly play Kusanov and Diaz are available, and probably Vardy. You might be tempted to genuinely shift over Kusanov to right back if he's and let him sort of cover that channel. And then, because if you play Kusanov at right back, and if you want to play Nico Riley again, if he gets a start, he's never going to do it. But if he does, then you'd have Vardy left centre back, Diaz centre, Kusanov right centre back as they go forward, and Nico Riley can just get forward, and that would be really nice. I would love to see that. Midfield, I think he will play Nico Gonzalez. I think Gundogan will play, and I think he'll go for Kevin De Bruyne. That could be. I think Foden will get a right wing shift again there, and I think it'll be Doku or Savinho. Probably Doku actually, because I would want Doku running at United's defence, because he's going to cause them trouble, and then probably Marmoush through the middle. I reckon it'll be something like that. Bernardo Silva usually just play in these games, so that's the only thing. And he's always done well at Old Trafford, Bernardo Silva. So um, don't be surprised if he plays, and if he does, he probably will play on the right wing, I reckon, and sort of drift inside and defend a little bit more.